The siren's heart. The sea breeze caressed Elena's face as she disembarked from the sea's whisper, her heart pounding in anticipation. The familiar port of San Mateo stretched out before her, its narrow cobblestone streets curving into the distance like a promise she could never refuse. She tugged at her dark crimson coat, the gold buttons gleaming under the setting sun as she strode toward the town she hadn't visited in nearly a year. Her crew, rough men of the sea, were already shouting orders and rushing to secure provisions and treasure. She turned her back on them, eager to be free of their noise, her mind elsewhere. She was here for one thing and one thing only. No, Elena reminded herself as she reached for the hilt of her sword. She wasn't just here for the silks, the gold, or the rum her men would surely drain from every tavern. She was here for her. Isabella. The name was a whisper in her heart, a flame she could never extinguish. The daughter of the governor of San Mateo, Isabella was as far out of reach for a pirate like Elena as the stars in the sky. And yet, every time Elena moored her ship in this port, she couldn't resist her pull. She wound her way through the market, the scent of spices and roasting meats filling the air, but Elena was too preoccupied to notice. The familiar arched house loomed in the distance, its tall stone walls and lavish courtyard a stark reminder of the world Isabella belonged to, so different from Elena's own. A world of wealth, manners, and expectations. A world that wouldn't tolerate pirates. She moved through the shadows of the quiet streets, her heartbeat quickening as she finally reached the iron gate of the governor's residence. Elena had always been careful to come when the governor was away, diplomatic meetings, long sea voyages. But today she didn't know what she would find inside. As she picked the lock with a quiet click, her pulse raced, half from the danger, half from the desire that had brought her back here once again. With a slow creak, the gate opened and Elena slipped inside, her boots silent on the stone path. She knew this place well. She had stolen through these halls more than once, seeking Isabella like a secret treasure. Tonight would be no different, at least that's what she told herself. She reached the courtyard and paused at the grand wooden doors, her hand on the cool brass handle. She took a deep breath, pushing them open. Elena! The voice sent a shock through her. There she was, standing at the top of the staircase. Isabella! A vision of light and warmth, wrapped in a pale blue gown that caught the fading sunlight, her raven-black hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Her dark eyes glittered with surprise, and something else Elena couldn't place. "You've come back," Isabella whispered, descending the stairs with slow, graceful steps, her gaze never leaving Elena's. Elena's throat tightened. "I couldn't stay away." Her voice was rougher than she intended, betraying the tumult of emotions she had tried so hard to bury. She had sailed halfway across the world to escape the feelings that tore at her soul, but here under Isabella's gaze, they rushed back like a tidal wave. "I had to see you." Isabella reached the bottom step and stopped just inches from her. Her breath soft, her lips parted. Elena's chest tightened as the scent of jasmine filled her senses, and her heart beat in time with the waves crashing against the distant shore. She was close enough to touch, close enough to feel the warmth of her skin. "I missed you," Isabella said softly, her eyes searching Elena's face. "I didn't think you'd return." Elena clenched her fists, forcing herself not to reach out and pull her into an embrace. The yearning was unbearable. "I couldn't help it. Every time I think I've left you behind, something pulls me back." Her voice broke, and for the first time, Elena allowed the truth to slip out. "You've bewitched me, Isabella. You haunt me." The soft gasp that escaped Isabella's lips was enough to undo Elena completely. She stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached for Isabella's cheek. The moment her fingers grazed that soft skin, she knew she was lost. Isabella leaned into her touch, her eyes fluttering shut. "I feel the same," Isabella murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "You haunt me too, Elena. Every night I dream of you. Every time the sea touches this shore, I wonder if you'll be carried back to me." The confession hit Elena like a storm, and before she could stop herself, she closed the distance between them, capturing Isabella's lips in a kiss so soft, so tender, it felt like the world stood still. It was slow and searching, a kiss that held years of unspoken longing, of stolen glances and quiet dreams. Isabella's arms wrapped around Elena's neck, pulling her closer, her breath hitching as the kiss deepened. The taste of her was intoxicating, warm, sweet, and forbidden. Elena's heart pounded in her chest, her hands trembling as they slipped around Isabella's waist, pulling her tight against her. She had imagined this moment for so long, but nothing could have prepared her for the way Isabella's body molded to hers, soft and pliant. "Elena," Isabella breathed between kisses, her voice a desperate plea. "Don't leave me again." "I won't," Elena vowed, her voice hoarse. "Not tonight." She kissed Isabella again, pouring everything she couldn't say into that embrace. The years of separation, the danger that threatened them both, the knowledge that they were from different worlds, it all faded into the background. All that mattered was the woman in her arms, the fire burning between them, and the undeniable truth that they belonged to each other, if only for this stolen moment. Isabella's fingers tangled in Elena's hair, and Elena let herself drown in the feeling of her, in the warmth and softness, in the way Isabella whispered her name like a secret prayer. They stumbled backward, their lips never breaking apart until they reached the edge of Isabella's bed. Elena pulled away for a breath, her forehead resting against Isabella's. "This can't last," Elena whispered, her voice filled with regret. "You know that, don't you?" Isabella's eyes, filled with unshed tears, met hers. "I don't care. As long as I have you here now, I don't care." Elena's heart twisted at the raw honesty in Isabella's voice. For once she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could have this moment. Maybe they could pretend the world wasn't waiting to tear them apart. Without another word, she lowered Isabella onto the bed, their lips meeting in a series of tender kisses, slow and savoring. Elena's hands roamed over the curves of Isabella's body, memorizing every inch of her, every soft sigh that escaped her lips. She wanted to remember this night forever. For the first time in years, Elena let herself be vulnerable. She let herself love, if only for tonight. As they lay entwined in the quiet of the night, the sound of the distant waves lulling them into peace, Elena whispered a truth she had never dared to speak aloud. "I love you, Isabella." Isabella smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "I love you too, Elena." And for now that was enough.